Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Prospero AI stock market live streams. We are going live on the Fed rate cut decision day. It was just announced, and the markets are reacting positively here that the Fed has cut rates by a quarter basis point. And maybe the bigger news, which investors seem to be a bit more surprised by, is that the Fed is going to begin Treasury bill purchases in just 2 days from now, December 12th. So a lot to go over about the Fed meeting, the news we got. Nick is in the stream. Hello, Nick. Welcome back to the live streams. We have everybody tuning in now. Be sure to like it up if you're watching on Twitter or YouTube. If you're excited for the topics today, let's get those likes up. Hopefully, we have a great stream. We got a lot of topics to go through here. If we got any new viewers, my name is Steven. Welcome to the Prospero Lives. Good to have you here. We're going to go through a bunch of topics on the stream today, and then at the end of the stream, we'll be doing the model portfolio update. We'll make some live moves. But yes, I'll go through the list of topics right now, and George will join me in just a moment or so. But we're going to go over a lot of topics surrounding the Fed today, their decision to cut, the impact it will have on the economy, whether it will actually help us out here. It seems like there's more and more fears growing about the state of the economy in terms of unemployment, growth, inflation. Will rate cuts solve all our problems, or maybe AI efficiency? We will go through all of that. Like I said earlier, the Fed deciding to restart their Treasury bill purchases, providing a little bit more liquidity to markets, which let's actually give you guys an update. We'll check in on how the markets are exactly moving at the moment. Right now, which we've been on the streams, we've been seeing more so than not. We've been seeing the Russell outperform. It is that way still right now. The Russell is about 1.33% up on the day, followed by the Dow Jones in second, which is interesting, up 1%. Then the SPY at 2/3, and then last but not least, the QQQ, the laggard today, up about 1/3% here. So we'll see if that order remains the same by the end of the stream. I saw Bitcoin, which has been lagging a lot, was also rising from this news. And Jerome Powell is probably just about wrapped up if he hasn't just yet. But he was speaking at 2:30. Decision came out at 2 p.m. Mario's tuning in. Afternoon, Stephen. Let's rock and roll. Mario, you ready to see that green in the portfolio, right? And across the markets. What else are we going to talk about regarding the Fed? I think that will be it for that when George gets in here. Then we're going to spin into some stock-specific topics, especially this is a very interesting one we've been covering a lot recently because it was George's stock of the year at Finimize in London, ASTS. It is moving today based off this story that came out that SpaceX is planning an IPO in mid to late 2026. Excuse me. And the market cap of SpaceX is staggering. They believe that it will IPO at about $1.5 trillion in market cap. I didn't verify, but I imagine that's the largest IPO in history. That's incredible. Elon Musk will be well on his way to being the world's first trillionaire for sure with Tesla and SpaceX once they're both public. It is pretty crazy also the multiples that would value SpaceX on. So we'll go through that if it's justified and if that will be a good investment upon IPOing. But it was helping not just ASTS. Let's see other space stocks that were doing well today. I know SATS was also another one that was doing great. Rocket Lab has been doing very well recently as well. Basically, all of the space stocks are up today. FLY, LUNR, Redwire, Rocket Lab, Voyager, everything, if it has to do with space, is up on that news. Looks like multiples across that sector are going up because of that. I'm going to cover another. I would consider this, I guess, a high growth sector, but I don't know if it's actually coming to fruition. There was some hype about it back in the day. If anybody remembers the 3D printing buzz that came across the markets for a bit, there was a few stocks that people thought were going to be able to capitalize on this technology. Well, I saw this story that Alquist is actually building about a dozen Walmarts using 3D printing. And I wanted to bring it up to George because I don't think we've really covered 3D printing much on the streams. And I was wondering, does it belong in that mix of space, quantum, nuclear, all of the growth sectors we've been covering? Or is this more like a metaverse type sector where it might not be coming to fruition as people had hoped? It is interesting to hear that Walmart is actually utilizing the technology, and there's a company out there. And I did look up, there was an ETF, PRNT was the ticker. So I always like to share those ways where if it's a very high growth space and you don't know who's going to be the winners, sometimes it's easier with an ETF because you just get a basket, and if one of them is the major winner, it'll boost the ETF as well. JC's in the building. What's up, JC? Good afternoon to you. We have had over 175 people tuning in already. I guess that means we got 175 likes, right? Between Twitter and YouTube. No, I'm just kidding. A few more topics to go through here. We have Sam Altman making comments about who OpenAI's biggest competitor is. And I think a lot of people would expect him to say either one of the other LLMs like Anthropic or all of the other ones, or maybe Google with how they've seemed to leapfrog into first place with AI technology. But it wasn't any of those companies, not Google. He mentioned a different company who we've talked about a lot on the streams. I think I will save it till later to reveal. Try to make a few of you guys hang out until then. But I want to ask George if he believes that to be true. And another Altman um, interesting opinion on the AI space, he believes that physical applications of AI, so not the software, the hardware, is where the most opportunity is now. So I want to ask George, does he agree? In that same vein, we have AVAV stock, AVAV, AeroVironment, which is a drone maker, which was a high flying stock down today. I wonder how it's doing now that the market has flipped. I'll have to take a peek. Yeah, it's not quite moving with the market, still down 12% here after a bit of lackluster earnings. Revenue came in about 100% growth year over year, but the actual earnings were negative and missed expectations, so the stock is down. It's now well off its peak of over $409 per share in the middle of October. So it's getting close to about a 50% pullback. I'm going to ask George if he finds it interesting. One of those high growth stocks, and it has pretty good Prospero signals. So we shall see. Nick, Avgo earnings coming up too. We have a big earnings day today, actually. I think, is Costco today too? I saw a list earlier where there was a bunch of companies to be reporting. We covered a lot of them on our Monday stream. GameStop was one of the ones that's already had earnings, and it is not doing well today. I wonder if the Fed meeting has flipped it at all. Not quite, still down 3%. People are second guessing if buying Bitcoin was the move for GameStop here, but yeah, GameStop didn't have a great earnings. As I just said, AeroVironment didn't have a great earnings. So we'll see if some of the companies that are reporting today, now that the market's heading more towards the green, maybe they can catch a bid as well. Costco tomorrow. Yeah, so it's actually an interesting earnings week. We've got a few major companies reporting: Costco, Oracle, Avgo. Broadcom's got to be the biggest. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see if there's any major headlines coming out of them. One more topic to go through. Hopefully, we'll get to it before the end of the stream today. Like I said, we are doing the model portfolio update at the very end. It will be, I will give you guys, well, these numbers refer from this morning, but the updated performance of the SPY, QQQ, gold, and Bitcoin. Anybody who's watching the stream now, take your guess as to which has been the leader so far. Guess who is the leader and who is the lagger of those four so far this year? QQQ, SPY, gold, Bitcoin. I know we have a lot of people that follow the markets very closely who watch the stream, so I'm thinking you guys will probably be able to guess, but we'll see what you guys are thinking. I'm going to ask George if it's a little bit surprising to see how some of these different markets have moved throughout the year and what that can tell us for 2026 as it's approaching. We're just a few weeks away from the calendar flipping over and a whole new year and a whole new world of opportunity, hopefully, in the markets. Let's take a look at the QQQ and SPY net option sentiment. Maybe they're looking a little bit more bullish after we're seeing a good market reaction here. All right, so the QQQ is at 35 now, which is up from this morning where it was as low as 22, and it was in the teens just yesterday. So it's almost double from where it was just yesterday. So that's a good sight to see. Looks like tech is looking a bit more bullish. SPY, when we were checking on Monday, was at 0. It's been very, very low in recent days. and probably about all of December, honestly. Let's take a look at SPY. SPY is at 3 now today, so not quite as bullish as the QQQ levels, which is no surprise if you're a regular viewer of the streams or checker of the NOS and Prospero. SPY has been lagging QQQ almost as long as I can remember. Way back in the day, there was a time when SPY was having overall more bullish signals than QQQ and NOS, but it has been a while since then. All right, let's take a look at some of the stocks and see how they are moving. Here we have, we still have, this is a little bit surprising to me. We still have some Mag 7 names in the red. Maybe that's why that indice is lagging the Russell here today. We have Apple, Amazon in the green, Google in the green, Meta, Microsoft red, Tesla green. Check on the almighty NVIDIA. NVIDIA is in the red also. So pretty mixed in the Mag 7 right now overall. That would explain why that index is not moving quite as bullishly as the Russell, which is approaching 2% up on the day here. The VIX is also down about 7%. It's at 1577 at the moment. Wow, the VIX is way off its all-time, well, not its all-time, its recent highs from the end of November, hitting over $26, almost a 50% pullback. So volatility is pretty low at the moment, that would suggest. Let me give my pitch for comments if we have any new viewers here. So I have prepared topics for all of you that we'll go through, but we always love to answer any questions that you guys may have about any stocks, micro, macro, AI, whatever you want to hear, even Prospero related. Feel free to comment them. They'll pop up for me and we can go through them one by one, and we're happy to. So yeah, if you have any questions, concerns, don't feel shy. Comment it in the chat. We are happy to get to it. Looks like Bitcoin is up about 1.5% today now. Excuse me, my voice. It is crossing the $94,000 level as we speak. It's getting to back to the highs it's hit since its pullback. So we'll see if Bitcoin keeps moving up. I imagine that the Fed announcing that they are going to resume essentially QE in a sense with their purchases of treasury bills, that would be music to Bitcoin's ears, being the hedge on the government spending, printing of money, and all of this. So we'll have to track and see if Bitcoin can get any type of a bid. It's been one of the more lagging areas of the market. Tim asked, hi, is it relevant to use the fear-greed index ratios to get an idea of the rough situation not to make decisions? I think you can use the fear and greed index ratio. Hello, George. Welcome to the stream today. To get an overall sense of how stretched a move is in the markets. If we're at like super greedy near the 100 level, it's probably about time where it's going to cool off. If we're approaching 0 for the fear level, it might be a bounce coming soon. I think those are more short-term moves, not really long-term. Anything to add there, George, with our question from Tim about the fear and greed? Do you have an opinion? Do you look at that much?
I think for the fear, and like I don't put too much stock in it, other than I think it's a really good sign that it's due for a reversal one way or the other. But it's like kind of how we talk about bubbles sometimes. That's not like a foregone conclusion. So how useful it is as a data point, unless you're just basically going to, I think, be more on guard than you might otherwise will be about a potential flip.
Nick also commented, iHeart is about to approach a 52-week high. iHeart Radio, huh? You don't say. Let's take a look at it. Oh yeah, up 10% today. Maybe a short squeeze candidate there. I know it was looking like one of the more bearish stocks in Prospero for a while.
It's with it in a while. It's on a
Every
tear.
dog has its day, though.
Yeah, maybe it'll change again. But there's too much going on in the background. Like I think there was that deal that I think like some people must have been aware of. Like, yeah, I'm off that stock. for the foreseeable future. Too many losses
So
this year.
yeah, we have to get into the Fed rate cut decision that was just announced about an hour ago now. The markets are reacting positively. I'm wondering if you have an opinion on whether the reaction we're seeing here is more so due to the rate cut or an announcement that the Fed is going to resume buying treasury bills in just 2 days, December 12th, and they plan to buy 40 billion worth over the next 30 days. Now, from the coverage I saw, that announcement seemed like a bigger surprise to people, or maybe even unexpected. And that's essentially a version of QE. So there'll be more liquidity coming into the system. So do you think this move is warranted? And how do you feel about the updates we got with the rate cut and the announcement of the Treasury purchases?
Yeah, I mean, it shows that um, we're getting to more, I think, more overall bullish feelings, right? I think, when you look at this and you look at like the rally we're seeing, that's inclusive of the fact that they like my concern was that they would pour a lot of cold water on a potential other rate cut, and they did. They Powell went from before this meeting being like, um, people are expecting this, but it isn't a foregone conclusion. He shifted it a little bit now, I think, to say, we kind of expected it to be, I think he was steering people towards a pause being the expectation. So you'd think, I'm on guard for tomorrow. Like, you'd think there'd be a more negative reaction, but I do think the easing, is a nice headline, and I do think there are concerns about inflation. Um, but I also think um, that he does seem concerned about the labor market. Um, and I think an interesting thing about the labor market, I want to share an anecdote on a call with a Prospero investor yesterday. Um, because I wasn't aware of this. If anybody has more on this story, but it's a story I've been thinking about since we spoke. Um, that law firms are not hiring junior lawyers um, anymore, because AI is stepping in and doing so much of the work that junior lawyers were doing. Um, so I bring that up to say that I don't know what is going on in the labor markets, but I do kind of understand this like high level concern, kind of broad concern that maybe Powell and maybe people are feeling. Because like I haven't seen any numbers that have concerned me. We've looked at that graph that shows, the split of the S&P and, job growth kind of going the other way. But if anyone has data points to look at, I'd love to see it. But basically, what is just something I'm looking at and making me like, wondering when we're going to pay the pipers. I keep on hearing all of these anecdotal things about these jobs being replaced. The legal one is shocking. I hadn't heard about that yet. But we haven't seen it kind of bubble up in the stock market yet. We haven't even seen it bubble up to some of these like high level, something like unemployment is not really moving that much. So why that is, I don't know. Are we changing? Are there changes being made in the way that we're reporting? Are there, are some of these just these anecdotal things the start of an iceberg situation where we see something much bigger? And why it's kind of a developing story and why I'm kind of thinking through it is I don't really know how I'd form that into a strategy right now, that thought. But it's definitely something I'm looking out for. And please, send me anything if you come across any interesting, labor data.
That's fascinating. And I imagine someone who's like a lawyer or graduated with a law degree in the past 2 years, a lot of those people are probably like six figures plus in debt, college tuition debt. And after you spend the time, nearly a decade of learning that skill, if you can't get a job, you're not going to want to switch to like a new career instantly. You just spent all this time, so you're kind of like you've committed yourself to it. So that's going to be fascinating to watch. And what you're saying with like how they're using AI, I feel like that's different than any other past historical thing because yeah, like maybe the economy would slow in the past and you'd hire like 10, 20, 30% less people. But now it's like 90% maybe like with AI just taking everything and it's like never going to go back, right? Like the economy is not what would speed up and hiring would increase in the past. But this with AI, it'll actually only go one direction over time. Just be less and less.
Yeah.
So that's crazy.
Yeah, it's going to be one of, I mean, it's one of the more interesting developing stories um I've seen, and yeah, like the speed at which these things are getting rolled out. I was actually I'm speaking at the AI Summit in New York tomorrow. I was hosting a get together at my house last night, and I was speaking to some people at Cohere. And one of the things they do is they basically build their own models, LLMs, primarily to drop off um, at their clients, on-prem situation. So it's not like you're hitting an API with ChatGPT. That's something that's becoming more and more relevant. But yeah, even just like chatting with them about the projects they're working on, like, one of their customers was uh, one of the largest manufacturers and also consultants in Korea. This guy I was talking to specifically. Um, and what's interesting about that, right, is it didn't used to be. This is an interesting part about how advanced this technology is and kind of the way the landscape is reshaping. Because it didn't used to be that a company that big, maybe they'd bring in like a big five consulting firm to help them solve a small problem, but like they weren't necessarily unable to build, you know, this kind of cutting edge technology in house, especially a company like them. I know the name. I don't want to share the name to break confidence of this person, um, but the landscape is changing. It's changing, so fast that even large companies with practically unlimited resources can't keep up. And I think that it's going to accelerate. And I think in terms of the impact of them on the market, um, we don't really know what it's going to do, but I definitely think that I'm bullish in the short term because this is so much expansion. But yeah, when we talk about things like these consultants, these lawyers, like these are these are people that especially something like a lawyer, like they went to law school. It's not necessarily like them being out of work. Um, they can maybe learn new skills, but this is really unprecedented time um, in our economy, and it'll be very interesting to see how it gets handled. But yeah, I think that's why as we've been talking about the AI bubble, it's been kind of the same thing. It's like, yes, we're in an AI bubble, but might be might be another 2 years before it bursts. There's very, very real growth going on here. And that's what we kind of said about it in the beginning. Like people were saying it's the AI bubble like a year ago, and we were just like, we were shrugging that off a year ago because it's just like, no, this isn't pets.com. This is real revenue. Um, but now we're just getting to a place where it just grows and grows and grows, and the multiples that are being paid are so high. But there is that very real growth step.
For George, the law industry situation is transposable on the accounting, auditing, big four firms, not on the same level, but starting strong was a thing 5 years ago already with simpler algos.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. It's it's a very interesting time that we're living in. I'm sure I'll have some good takeaways. I'm managing the data excellence stage tomorrow at the AI Summit, so I'm sure I'll have some interesting takeaways to bring to the group.
The discussion we've had so far kind of leads well into a question I had for you, which is like There's a lot of seemingly nervousness about the economy, probably for good reason. And the AI effect on job market is probably a large part of that. And the Fed's only tool is really to cut rates to address the job market and inflation. Is cutting rates like the right move? Can that fix the problems we're having with the economy right now?
Well, I mean, I don't know if we're having problems, right? um, but no, I mean, you heard Powell. I mean, whoever heard Powell talk, he's he definitely he feels more and more strained about the dual mandate, right? He feels more and more strained, um, about maintaining reasonable levels of inflation, price levels, and then obviously the other part of the dual mandate is labor, right? And he continues. I would say he continues to repeat that these things are at odds, and I think he continues to now repeat that there's kind of more and more dissent in terms of how to handle that. So no, I mean, he's been very explicit, and I would agree with him. There's no clean ways to handle this. And I mean, I think um that's what I'm very concerned about. If Powell ends up leaving, if there's, big cuts, I think that will absolutely stimulate the economy, but I think we could be getting into a disastrous stagflation situation.
I was
Like
I was just going to ask you
if that
that.
does happen.
But I think even building on the stagflation thing, I think it's shrinkflation, which usually happens when food companies shrink the size they offer in their like products. But right now it's happening to people in their jobs because AI is expanding, taking the jobs, and the amount of people in the workforce is being shrunk. So I think it's the first time people are going through shrinkflation in the economy, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just don't like, all I can say is I just don't think we're prepared for what's coming. And I don't think just a simple rate cut is going to be a solution. It's such a structural thing that's happening. There's going to need to be like, there's going to need to be a way to create that the government creates jobs or supports people in ways that it hasn't before, because this is only getting started. And I think that is the danger of being very aggressive with rate cuts, right? Because that is normally your best tool, but if you fire too many of the bullets too fast, you know to you know solve the problem before the full problem has emerged, um you might make it a lot harder to solve, a lot harder. And I think that is what Powell was saying today,
Hmm.
in his own, Jerome Powell way. He was saying that um, it's an interesting time, and if we can get away with pausing rate cuts, right, and seeing what happens with inflation, letting the labor develop a little more. But yeah, he really emphasized how important the data that was going to come in the next few weeks was. Obviously, there were some reporting issues, so I think that's the other thing. As much as we've talked about it, I think we could be, if there are a lot of surprises, we could be having a completely different conversation. And I actually do think, given all of this, if there are bad labor numbers, I do think I think we'll almost definitely get a cut. So I think we might see another positive response to a negative jobs report.
Well, very interesting discussion. I had a great time going over that the first 30 minutes of the stream. I hope everybody did too. I want to move on now to a big story that came out, which is boosting all space stocks today, which should be good for, and it is good for ASTS. But it was reported that SpaceX is planning an IPO sometime mid to late next year, and the market cap is staggering at about $1.5 trillion upon IPOing, which would continue Elon Musk's becoming the first trillionaire in the world ever, probably, almost certainly nearly after this IPO is between Tesla and SpaceX at that point. Um, what do you think of them going public at 1.5 trillion? They're expected to do about 22 to 24 billion in revenue next year, so it's quite the multiple.
22 to 24 billion in revenue. Like, is some of that like selling the spaceships?
I think they just
I
do
don't want to see a
so many
breakdown.
launches for other people, and it does include Starlink too.
Yeah. Um, that's crazy. Um, okay, 78% of that revenue is Starlink. Interesting. Damn. Yeah, that makes me feel good about ASTS. Yeah. Wow. We're about 15.5 billion in total revenue. 2024, 2025. And what is it? It's gonna go public at a trillion?
1.5, they're saying.
How much how much of space X does damn Elon. Elon is doing this capitalism thing right. 42% he owns. Crazy. 42% of, I mean, that's probably already in his net worth.
That's
Yeah,
like 650 billion.
I know.
Oh my god.
Uh, And and like that's an IPO. We should get in on that IPO. I'm planting my flag in that right now. I feel like that's an IPO that's going to go up like 30-40% in a day.
So there'll be just so much excitement and momentum for that company. The fundamentals will not matter, you probably believe.
So where would 1.5 trillion rank them?
I wonder what Tesla's market cap is. Let me look at that right now. They might be about the
Yeah, I'm,
same.
I'm like, has anyone ever like? I mean, there's not. It's unprecedented being the largest shareholder in. Um,
Tesla's market cap 1.52 trillion right now. About the same.
okay, let's see. Okay, yeah. So as of now, you can't give me a list of 25 companies. Come on, ChatGPT. That's really cheap. Yeah, I asked for 25. Okay, so yeah, that would put him 1.5. He would be the largest shareholder in like the seventh and eighth largest company. That's crazy. It's crazy that SpaceX is worth that much.
Well, the
Yeah,
question is
ASDF.
it?
I mean, it's got the it's got the Musk factor. Crazy. I mean, yeah, I mean it's a very promising business. Um, I didn't realize Starlink was pulling in, doing some like 12 billion in revenue. It's not bad.
Hmm. I've
It's a
been
lot of space phones, space internet.
There's been a lot of murmurings about data centers in space recently. I think Sundar Pichai has been mentioning it I saw like a highlight clip of him saying it on like every interview he's doing. So it seems like the space industry, like we've been talking about it on our streams for a bit now, but we may be at we may be at that like chat GBT launch moment soon. I feel like with this where it's like, okay, this is, if it hasn't happened yet, kicking it all off and starting.
I feel like uh, I feel like I need to make a meme of Sundar Pichai as Hansel, and then Mugatu being like Google's so hot right now. Like like that's all I could think about. I was like, yeah, Google's like, the darling company again. Like everybody loves it. They're like, we're gonna build servers in space. Sure, why not? Why not talk about that? You're on a hot streak, right?
You are right.
And
I feel
that's like, that's the interesting thing. Like, even the way, like, people have seen the evolution of how I talked about Google to being like, extremely bullish on it because I always loved their tech and their research. And then it seemed like others were passing, and then they've, gotten back to their rightful place. And I think that's, if you're learning and you're learning here alongside me, I think that's the kind of thing that you always have to watch for, right? Because what I'm thinking about is like I kind of knew it the whole time. I just got convinced by the chatter around. Like the Prospero signal stayed pretty solid on it. It wasn't as great as say Meta, but they stayed solid. Like we had it in our trading, we have a position in our trading portfolio. We had it the whole time, like because it always had a critical mass of the signals. Um, but like that's an example right there where like I'd studied Google for a long time. I had the right read on the company. I had the right read that they had the best AI brain and long term it was be profitable. I could have been, if I was doing my best, I could have been getting, taking a position, holding it. That's not really the Prospero investing letter strategy, although we're thinking about revising that next year. Stay tuned. But yeah, that's something that you just reflect on it, where it's just like I had the conviction, I had the right I mean, I had the right read, I didn't have the conviction. And that's something that everybody should think about as you analyze these companies on a like more longitudinal basis, right? Because you could see me talk about Apple over the same time, you know, never really liked it,
mhm.
have the same opinion on it. But Google, I went, very bullish to, concerned to, bullish again, but wondering if too much of the move is priced in already. That's why I'm not in right now.
You mentioned Apple, and I had a topic about them today, so we'll go to that now. It's actually interesting to hear that Sam Altman was saying that Apple is who he views as his biggest competitor out of every company in the world. And he said this is the case because he believes there's far more opportunity in physical AI, so hardware versus software. I'm wondering if you think that's true. Um, is this him trying to? We know he's kind of like a master salesman. I feel like going on all these interviews and stuff. So does he have any agenda there, or does he actually
I mean,
believe that?
I don't, I don't believe that for a second. I think Google's turning up the heat on him a little bit with this Gemini thing, and he's trying to distract from that, take away from their like, I was joking, but it's true. Google is so hot right now,
Hmm.
right? And I think like anything to like he's trying to take the luster off Google. That's that's what I think. I mean, the truth of the matter is like Apple is not what it what like I agree that positioning in hardware is important and the loyalty in hardware is so important. But like when I talk when you talk to people about their Apple products maybe 10 years ago, there were many more people that were just like, I love Apple. I'm buying Apple everything, Apple, Apple, Apple. Right? There's some people like that still. But like there's a lot of people like me that's just like, I'm used to my phone. I'm used to the Apple system. I don't want to go to Android, right? Like that's my thing. Like I'm accustomed to it. I'm not enthusiastic about it. And there's things I resent, like their planned obsolescence. Like that's annoying. Like if a new piece of hardware, like they do not have my loyalty anymore. They have me as a customer. But if a new piece of hardware came along that was interesting, I would probably leave Apple in a second. I'm not a loyal Apple customer anymore. And I think there's a lot of people like that. Like the main reasons I hear people like is the one I just stated. And then something as silly as like they don't want to have like a green text message to people. And I agree. That blue color is very pleasing. And that green color is just gross. I don't want to be one of those green people. So yeah, I think I think I think Sam Altman, and he should be, for the first time, is a little scared. I mean, if you look at, even what Elon Musk says about AI, and this was one of some of the things that always had me so bullish on Google, on like when I zoomed out, like when Elon Musk was trying to like take over OpenAI, kind of get in the fold there, all that stuff, he was pounding the table because he was like, this is the only way to beat Google, right? That's what, those emails were leaked. He was worried about Google then. And they should be worried about Google now. They've figured out this LLM thing, right? And you have to kind of look at it the same way you look at stocks and momentum and trajectory, right? Like Gemini and ChatGPT might be, have similar, product quality, different things. I mean, there's different strengths of it now, same with Claude, but just for the purposes of this exercise, like where Gemini was a year ago versus where it is now, the distance and space in product improvement is much more substantial than the difference in space and product improvement for ChatGPT. So directionally, and this is why they're getting such a multiple, right? But this is also why it's hard for me to actually, put Google in the portfolio, let's say, right? Because I don't know if I'm ready to bet just yet that Google can continue this momentum, because, if you recall, as I talk about this more, my thesis originally was Google has DeepMind. They're going to figure out a way to use that. And they did. They basically said they're using, thank you to DeepMind, they helped make Gemini better, Gemini 3. But if that's already integrated, right? Have they gotten the full benefits of integrating DeepMind? Is there more to go? That's what I think makes it a tough question, because I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the intricacies of it. I don't know even how much DeepMind is still producing excellent new technology. I mean, their leader, Jeffrey Hinton, left a little while, right? So they could just be cycling in older stuff. Hinton was the propeller there. So very interesting, always interesting to talk about AI. But why I'm leaning away, just, ASTS, what can I say? They're pounding the table for it. Looks like the right thing. We simplified things.
Moving us along here, because we are running out of time, and I got another topic I want to get into, hopefully maybe one or two more. But we have a 3D printing story, which is a technology we haven't talked about much. And I know there was a lot of hype about this back in the day. I'm wondering if you think it belongs in that mix of sectors we always talk about that have great growth potential: quantum, nuclear, space, all of those. I saw this story that a company, Alquist, is building about a dozen Walmarts using 3D printing. And I was getting curious, and I looked up a ticker. PRNT is a 3D printing ETF. I always like to give that for some of these sectors that you don't know who's going to be the winner. But how do you feel about 3D printing? Do you like that technology? Do you see a bright future for it?
PRNT?
Yeah, is it ETF?
Oh, buy ARC funds. I like 3D printing. Yeah, I do. What I'd be very interested in here, let's pop open our generative AI friend. What I'd be interested is the growth of the market.
When I saw the story about the Walmarts, I was like, well, if they could 3D print one of those massive buildings, what can't they 3D print at this point? Like, that's insane.
We're asking ChatGPT about it, about the 3D printing. I mean, I think it's a very interesting. I mean, obviously, when you start getting into like, buildings. I think prefab, all these like prefab houses, is very interesting. Like what it's doing to like, parts, I think is particularly interesting. Um, but why I'm asking this question, right, is like I don't really like I don't know. I know like some medical instruments, but I don't know how big the market can get. I don't know how saturated it is. And the one thing that these like frontier tech things are always, why sometimes I struggle. Like one of the things, like one of the problems with quantum, I have no idea how to evaluate the different companies and who's going to win, right? And when you're starting to get into kind of the physics of that, right? What I worry about with something like these like 3D printers that are already, existing, um, is there better tech, right? Are you going to end up investing in something and something better is coming along? Because like some of the things they're doing, like similar to quantum computing, some of the things they're doing on like a smaller and smaller particle level, could be very interesting, for these types of applications, um, as well, especially when you're talking about the way they can extract um base building blocks from existing, so you're not like ordering these things. You could basically break apart um you know other things to print the things you want. um the old, like, you could take garbage and turn it into a house, like that kind of thing. I don't really know where the technology is. So that's the one thing that makes me nervous. If you're just like, oh, there's this 3D printing company, like, I always like de-risking with an ETF. But for all we know, like these companies could be, replaced. Granted, these companies could also be looking for that next frontier technology, and be on the cutting edge of that. But that's always the tough thing when we talk about this kind of stuff.
We
Okay,
have,
it took a
yeah.
while. Okay, so 3D printing 2022 to 2023, 19.7, 2024, 33.3. Yeah, see, only a 21% growth rate. The next, I bet that the multiple you're paying on top of that is not great. And we'll leave it at that because it sounds like I got to switch. And I'm also looking at my clock.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll see
So
you
we'll
on the
see
other side.
George on the other side. Everybody, stick with me. We will get to the question in the chat. I see it about MU. I'm looking at it in Prospero as we speak, and signals are a little bit mixed. Only a 67 net option sentiment, 64 upside with a 53 growth, pretty close to one another. But it does have a good technical, good net social profitability. So a little bit mixed there. There's probably other better looking semi stocks if I had to guess. Intel has actually been one that's had high signals recently. Yeah, 86 net options, 85 upside for Intel, Nvidia, and Avgo probably higher. We have Avgo earnings today. Nvidia 94 upside, 83 net option sentiment. Avgo is at 72 and 64, so not looking as good as the other two. But yeah, MU is probably a victim to the other companies that are similar that have better signals at the moment. Let me thank everybody. We've had close to 1,500 people tuning in today, so thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you like the topics. Oh, you want to short it? Shorting MU? Interesting. Thank you for the comments, by the way. I don't know if it looks great as a short either. There's a lot of other stocks that have way worse signals. Um, Actually, I was looking today at some of the leading downside stocks, and I saw that Lucid was 98 downside and 0 upside. It was one of the ones that popped up, which was crazy to see. But yeah, there's probably other better companies to short also as well than MU. MU is kind of in the middle of everything at the moment. We got George here. All right, we got George back in here.
Yeah, I'm trying to get this done quickly.
All right, let me give everybody a recap. If you've been watching the stream since the beginning, the market has kind of, it went up a little bit, but back down now. So overall sideways since we started the stream here. The Russell is still the leader on the day, up about 1.5%. QQQ, the lagger, at up 0.5% at the moment. QQQ net option sentiment at 38 right now, which is nearly double from where it was yesterday, which is pretty good directionally. SPY is at 2 still, so pretty low, lagging there.
What'd you say?
QQQ 38, SPY 2 for NOS.
38 and 2. Okay. All right, we're gonna get through this quick. I'm not sharing yet, right?
No, you're not.
Sharing is caring. Okay. 38.
Powell said some things that should excite and concern the market. Which way did our signals go? Inc. Small caps seem to have the best reaction here, and we will identify winners there. We got a great comment from Tim. Thank you for the stream. Very insightful. We'll keep watching you all from France. Have a good day. Thanks for tuning in, Tim. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bonjour.
Hold on. Someone's at my door.
Sorry, Tim. That's the extent of my French knowledge. I would love to go to France one day.
Yes. Does he know what to do? Does he know what to do?
I muted George. I don't know. Au revoir. By the way, I am a little bit French. Small part of my ancestry, so I should know more about France, but can't claim I do. Good enough. Keep it English? Yeah, there we go. We'll stick to our strong suits. You know, I am sad. I don't know if anybody's tuned, how many people we have watching overseas, but I feel like people outside of America speak multiple languages so much more often and more. I don't know. I feel like it's just stressed more. Growing up in America, I took Spanish for like 10 years, but still can barely speak it. Mario saying, good show, guys. Thank you, Mario. We'll see if we could get the model portfolio finished. I muted you that whole time, by the way. I don't know if you were chatting with us or. But.
Oh. You got to ask the super. I don't know where the water. Yeah, I don't know any. Yeah. I can call Jock. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. I think. What are we going to do? Yeah, I think we're just going to exit again. Where's my phone? I'm gonna do an ultimate. I'm really gonna multitask here. If I can pull this off. Hey, Josh.
Well, you never know what you'll get on the Prospero live streams. I have a feeling we might be cutting this one short, everybody. We'll see. We'll see if George is back. George is back.
Momentum score. Okay. This is very chaotic. I apologize, everyone. Did I do this? 12. No, this is not 12. Jesus, that's not what we wanted. All right, so I don't think we're gonna add any longs. We need some new shorts now. I think we're gonna make it. We're gonna do this in a very tacky way. Yes. The water pressure is bad, and then okay. That would be great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right, I think we did all of this. That's
Against all odds.
a master class in multitasking. And I have some stocks I need to exit. Oh God, Lear. I should have gotten out of it earlier. I had an opportunity. Lear and Garmin. Maybe I'll leave it. Oh yeah, they went back down actually. I'm okay at those. Okay, we're done.
We are done. And no comments in the chat, just some good shows for us. So appreciate you all watching. We'll be
Thank
back
you.
live, normal schedule again next week.
Bye.
Thank you, George. Thank you, everybody who tuned in. See you guys then.